Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I am back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving back into the works of Mr. Manly Hall. We are dealing with the secret teachings of all ages. We are reading along and discussing as we go along the various topics that are brought to light by the text. But before we begin, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there are several playlists linked up here down in the box below, along with the original source material, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and what I stand for. It is fairly clear in the beginning of the playlists. With that being said, we are going to dive into and discuss Bacon, Shakespeare, and the Rosicrucians. The present consideration of the Bacon-Shakespeare-Rosicrucian controversy is undertaken not for the vain purpose of digging up dead men's bones, but rather in the hope that a critical analysis will aid in the rediscovery of that knowledge lost to the world since the oracles were silenced. It was W.F.C. Wigston who called the Bard of Avon Phantom Captain Shakespeare, the Rosicrucian mask. This constitutes one of the most significant statements relating to the Bacon-Shakespeare controversy. It is quite evident that William Shakespeare could not, unaided, have produced the immortal writings bearing his name. He did not possess the necessary literary culture, for the town of Stratford where he was reared contained no school capable of imparting the higher forms of learning reflected in the writings ascribed to him. His parents were illiterate, and in his early life he evinced a total disregard for study. There are in existence but 6 known examples of Shakespeare's handwriting. All are signatures, and 3 of them are in his will. The scrawling, uncertain method of their execution stamps Shakespeare as unfamiliar with the use of a pen, and it is obvious either that he copied a signature prepared for him, or that his hand was guided while he wrote. No autographed manuscripts of the Shakespearean plays or sonnets have been discovered, nor is there even a tradition concerning them, other than the fantastic and impossible statement appearing in the foreword of the Great Folio. A well-stocked library would be an essential part of the equipment of an author whose literary productions demonstrate him to be familiar with the literature of all ages. Yet there is no record that Shakespeare ever possessed a library, nor does he make any mention of books in his will. Commenting on the known illiteracy of Shakespeare's daughter Judith, who at 27 could only make her mark, Ignatius Donnelly declares it to be unbelievable that William Shakespeare, if he wrote the plays bearing his name, would have permitted his own daughter to reach womanhood and marry without being able to read one line of the writings that made her father wealthy and locally famous. The query also has been raised: where did William Shakespeare secure his knowledge of modern French, Italian, Spanish, and Danish, to say nothing of classical Latin and Greek? For, in spite of the rare discrimination with which Latin is used by the author of the Shakespearean plays, Ben Jonson, who knew Shakespeare intimately, declared that the Stratford actor understood small Latin and less Greek. Is it not also more strange that no records exist of William Shakespeare's ever having played a lead role in the famous dramas he was supposed to have written, or in others produced by the company of which he was a member? True, he may have owned a small interest in the Globe Theatre or Blackfriars, but apparently the height of his thespian achievements was the ghost in Hamlet. In spite of his admitted avarice, Shakespeare seemingly made no effort during his lifetime to control or secure remuneration for the plays bearing his name, many of which were first published anonymously. As far as can be ascertained, none of his heirs were involved in any manner whatsoever in the printing of the first folio after his death, nor did they benefit financially therefrom. Had he been their author, Shakespeare's manuscripts and unfinished plays would certainly have constituted his most valued possessions. Yet his will, while making special disposition of his second-best bed and his broad silver gilt bowl, never mentions nor intimates that he possessed any literary productions whatsoever. While the folios and quartos are usually signed William Shakespeare, all the known autographs of the Stratford actor read William Shakespeare, spelled differently. Does this change in spelling contain any significance heretofore generally overlooked? Furthermore, if the publishers of the first Shakespearean folio revered their fellow actor as much as their claims in that volume would indicate, why did they, as if in ironical allusion to a hoax which they were perpetuating, place an evident caricature of him on the title page? Sorry, it's a rough morning this morning. There's a lot of pollen and moisture in the air. Certain absurdities, also in Shakespeare's private life, are irreconcilable. While supposedly at the zenith of his literary career, he was actually engaged in buying malt, presumably for a brewing business, because you can't do both at the same time. He also pictured the immortal Shakespeare, the reputed author of The Merchant of Venice, as a moneylender. Yet, among those against whom Shakespeare brought action to collect petty sums was a fellow townsman, one Philip Rogers, whom he sued for an unpaid loan of 2 shillings, or about 48 cents. In short, there is nothing known in the life of Shakespeare that would justify the literary excellence imputed to him. I have only just recently become aware that there was even a conspiracy behind this. Now, I love conspiracies. I tell y'all that all of the time. I love all of the conspiracies. I love to hear them. I love to investigate them. I love to spend my time on them. But I don't believe all of them. This is one that I just don't know, right? I have no clue about. I have not investigated. I have not deep dived into. The things that we are reading here today are brand new to me, and this is funny, right? Some of this logic, okay, but some of it, what? Like, you can't be an author and invest your money into a brewing business? That's absolutely a thing that can happen, right? I write, I create songs, I do what we do here, but I got all kinds of creative efforts going on. I would do something else if I had the money to invest in it. It's possible to do more than one thing at a time. Now, this whole Shakespeare writing thing, that's new to me. I didn't know that he didn't have any books, right? I didn't know that his daughter couldn't read. I didn't know that. I didn't know a lot of these things, so this is funny to me. I don't have a problem with maybe Shakespeare was not the one who wrote those things. There are plenty of ghost writers. If we look back through history, many of the works attributed to some of the ancient masters are absolutely not theirs. Hermes Trismegistus, for example. Now, let's dive back into the text. I just had to point out that I love those as conspiracy theories, but this is a new one to me. I run across new ones every once in a while, but this is brand new. The philosophic ideals promulgated throughout the Shakespearean plays distinctly demonstrate their author to have been thoroughly familiar with certain doctrines and tenets peculiar to the Rosicrucianism. In fact, the profundity of the Shakespearean productions stamped their creator as one of the Illuminati of the ages. I'm not familiar with all of the works. I've read several of them, but not all of them. Most of those seeking a solution for the Bacon-Shakespeare controversy have been intellectualist. Notwithstanding their scholarly attainments, they have overlooked the most important part played by transcendentalism in the philosophic achievements of the ages. The mysteries of superphysics are inexplicable to the materialist, whose training does not equip him to estimate the extent of their ramifications and complexities. Yet, who but a Platonist, a Kabbalist, or a Pythagorean could have written The Tempest, Macbeth, Hamlet, or The Tragedy of Cymbeline? Who but one deeply versed in Paracelsian lore could have conceived A Midsummer's Night Dream? This is again false equivocation. It is entirely possible to not be a Platonist, a Kabbalist, or a Pythagorean and write something that might resemble them. You may have heard other people over talking. There could be some experience in your life that would lend you the expertise necessary to seem like you did know. We see that a lot. We've seen that a lot in this particular study. And so, okay. But this A Midsummer's Night Dream, that is not like these legends far outdate Shakespeare, right? They were common knowledge, the satyrs and dryads and all of the various characters that are brought to life. The journey even is not original. And so to attribute that, like, yeah, maybe he heard Paracelsian lore. I am sure Back in them days when there was a lot less entertainment to go around, the things that were entertaining were spread around a lot quicker and a lot more thoroughly. There was oral traditions long before there was writing, and so it is entirely possible that he was not any of these secret clubs, right? It's entirely possible that he was, but we do not have proof that he was, and so we have to assume that it was not. Right? That doesn't mean that it could not have been. Does not mean that it does not align. I have not read through all of these, right? As a matter of fact, I don't think I read through any of these first four, right? I have pieces of Macbeth I can pull out and Hamlet, but once again, that is one of those things that I felt like I was well read on, but I'm probably not. If you would like to go through and do Shakespeare, let me know down below. That is a possibility, right? So, father of modern science, remodeler of modern law, editor of the modern Bible, patron of modern democracy, and one of the founders of modern Freemasonry, Sir Francis Bacon was a man of many aims and purposes. He was a Rosicrucian. Some have intimated the Rosicrucian, if not actually the illustrious father CRC referred to in the Rosicrucian manifestos. He was certainly a high initiate of the Rosicrucian order, and it is his activities in connection with this secret body that are of prime importance to students of symbolism, philosophy, and literature. All right, we are going to fall back to the title page of Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy. What? I can't read it. I really wish these were clearer so that I could read them. I mean, it's interesting to look at. The link is down below as always. Baconian experts declare Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy to be in reality Francis Bacon's scrapbook, in which he gathered strange and rare bits of knowledge during the many years of eventful life. This title page has long been supposed to contain a cryptic message. The key to this cipher is the pointing figure of the maniac in the lower right-hand corner of the design. According to Miss Elizabeth Wells Gallup, the celestial globe at which the maniac is pointing is a cryptic symbol of Sir Francis Bacon. The planetary signs which appear in the clouds opposite of the marginal figures 4, 5, 6, and 7 signify the planetary configurations which produce the forms of mania depicted. The seated man, with his head resting upon his hand, is declared by Baconian enthusiasts to represent Sir Francis Bacon. All right, so that would be... this title page. Where is he pointing at a globe? I don't see that. This guy? This guy is what you're talking about in a separate panel? Well, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That is definitely pulling something out of your yang there. Like, is he praying to the shield? Is that what he's doing? Right? Anyway, what's going on here? Like, there's probably a lot of symbology to pick apart. We have alchemical zodiacal symbols here. There are definitely things that you can pick apart in a clear, defined thing, but I'm not sure that that is one of them. Right? That's an astrolabe. Okay, anyway. Scores of volumes have been written to establish Sir Francis Bacon as the real author of the plays and sonnets popularly ascribed to William Shakespeare. An impartial consideration of these documents cannot but convince the open-minded of the verisimilitude of the Baconian theory. In fact, those enthusiasts who for years have struggled to identify Sir Francis Bacon as the true Bard of Avon might long since have won their case had they emphasized its most important angle, namely that Sir Francis Bacon, the Rosicrucian initiate, wrote into the Shakespearean plays the secret teachings of the fraternity of R.C. and the true rituals of the Freemasonic order, of which order it may yet be discovered that he was the actual founder. A sentimental world, however, dislikes to give up a traditional hero, either to solve a controversy or to right a wrong. Nevertheless, if it can be proved that by raveling out the riddle there can be discovered information of practical value to mankind, then the best minds of the world will cooperate in the enterprise. The Bacon-Shakespeare controversy, as is most able advocates realize, involves the most profound aspects of science, religion, and ethics. He who solves its mystery may yet find therein the key to supposedly lost wisdom of antiquity. It was in recognition of Bacon's intellectual accomplishments that King James turned over to him the translator's manuscript of what is now known as the King James Bible, for the presumable purpose of checking, editing, and revising them. One of the greatest travesties to ever happen to mankind was the misinterpretation of various scriptures through time and the amalgamation of them into a control system which is designed to hold you back from your full potential. I do not give any recognition or credit whatsoever for this accomplishment. The documents remained in his hands for nearly a year, but no information is to be had concerning what occurred in that time. Regarding this work, William T. Smedley writes, "It will eventually be proved that the whole scheme of the authorized version of the Bible was Francis Bacon's. That whole scheme was his, and that alone, if he was indeed the creator of Freemasonry, and if he indeed is credited with this, then that is by itself reason alone to not engage in Freemasonry in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. If this is true, then that is a reason to not engage whatsoever in that particular club." I know. I step on toes. Watch the Bible study and then come back. The first edition of the King James Bible contains a cryptic Baconian headpiece. Did Bacon cryptographically conceal in the authorized Bible that which he dared not literally reveal in the text, the secret Rosicrucian key to mystic and Masonic Christianity? Sir Francis Bacon unquestionably possessed the range of general and philosophical knowledge necessary to write the Shakespearean plays and sonnets, for it is usually conceded that he was a composer, lawyer, and linguist. His chaplain, Dr. William Raleigh, and Ben Jonson both attest to his philosophic and poetic accomplishments. The former pays Bacon this remarkable tribute: "I have been induced to think that if there were a beam of knowledge derived from God upon any man in these modern times, it was upon him. For though he was a great reader of books, yet he had not his knowledge from books, but from some grounds and notions from within himself." See Introduction to the Rosicrucians. Sir Francis Bacon, being not only an able barrister but also a polished courtier, also possessed that intimate knowledge of parliamentary law and the etiquette of the royal court revealed in Shakespearean plays, which he could scarcely have acquired by a man in the humble station of the Stafford actor. Lord Velleram, furthermore, visited many of the foreign countries forming the backgrounds for the plays, and was therefore in a position to create the authentic local atmosphere contained therein, but there is no record of William Shakespeare's ever having traveled outside of England. The magnificent library amassed by Sir Francis Bacon contained the very volumes necessary to supply the quotations and anecdotes incorporated into the Shakespearean plays. Many of the plays, in fact, were taken from plots in earlier writings of which there was no English translation at that time. Because of his scholastic acquirements, Lord Velleram could have read the original books. It is most unlikely that William Shakespeare could have done so. Abundant cryptographic proof exists that Bacon was considered in the production of the Shakespearean plays. Sir Francis Bacon's cipher number was 33. In the first part of King Henry IV, the word Francis appears 33 times upon one page. To attain this end, obviously awkward sentences were required, as "And non Francis?" "No, Francis, but tomorrow, Francis," or "Francis on Thursday," or indeed, "Francis is when thou wilt, but Francis." Throughout the Shakespearean folios and quartos occur scores of acrostic signatures. The simplest form of the acrostic is that whereby a name, in these instances Bacon, was hidden in the first few letters of lines. In The Tempest, Act 1, Scene 2, appears a striking example of the Baconian acrostic. begun to tell me what I am, but stopped and left me to a bootless inquisition, concluding, stay, not yet. The first letters of the first and second lines, together with the first three letters of the third line, follow from the word bacon. Similar acrostics appear frequently in Bacon's acknowledged writings. So, the first and the second, and then you take three. That's okay, whatever. Okay, whatever, sure, I'm okay. Like, for real? Like, this is like the numerology shit, like Grammatica, right? Well, this number is 6, and this number is 7, and this number is 14, and if you add all of them together, they equal 3, and it makes a difference in the world somehow. Like, if you're going through complicated procedures in order to find ciphers and hidden things, then those things need to remain hidden, for the most part. There is nothing that I'm going to tell you about that I need to hide in these kind of things, right? Like, okay, so you're heady enough, you have enough hubris that you want your name hidden in here, and you put all these little clues in here, but then you sign somebody else's name to the document. Why not just put your name on it? It's not like it was going to bring you down to write the works of Shakespeare. It's not going to tarnish your reputation to be the one responsible for Hamlet. It's not going to Macbeth. Like, how are these things going to make you seem worse? Why do you need a pen name? It doesn't make sense, right? Why, if you did need a pen name, would you hide your own name in it like this? Why? It doesn't make sense. I'm sure people do it. It may even be true that this is that, but if so, then you didn't really have anything worth relaying anyway. If you have to hide behind someone else's name, then you got a bigger problem, right? I have a nickname. My nickname is Pitt. Y'all all know me by Pitt, but my name is Jeremy Pittman. It is shortened. That is it. That is my name. I am Pitt. I have been Pitt since I was knee-high to a pissant. I don't have to hide who I am. Any work that I do, I'm going to put my name on it. And if I have to hide it, then it's not worth doing. Like, these complicated things bother me. They do. They irk me greatly. Like, it would be different if it was another 2 lines, right? If there was a line starting with O and a line starting with N, and it was B-A-C-O-N in that manner, then okay. But this is stretching. B, A, and then con. And well, yeah, of course, that absolutely means bacon. Like, it's annoying. And it could be true. It absolutely could be true. He could be narcissistic enough that he did this. It is entirely possible, right? It's just useless. It's useless. It's worse than useless. It's cowardice. But then again, the tenor of the Shakespearean dramas politically is in harmony with the recognized viewpoints of Sir Francis Bacon, whose enemies are frequently caricatured in the plays. Likewise, their religious, philosophic, and educational undercurrents all reflect his personal opinions. Not only do these marked similarities of style and terminology exist in Bacon's writing and the Shakespearean plays, but there are also certain historical and philosophical inaccuracies common to both, such as identical misquotations from Aristotle. Evidently realizing that futurity would unveil his full genius, Lord Valoram, in his will, bequeathed his soul to God above by the oblations of his Savior, his body to be buried obscurely, his name and memory to men's charitable speeches to foreign nations, to succeeding ages, and to his own countrymen after some time had elapsed. That portion, appearing in italics, Bacon deleted from his will, apparently fearing that he said too much. Bequeathed his soul to God above by the oblations of his Savior. That is some ritual there. That Sir Francis Bacon's subterfuge was known to a limited few during his lifetime is quite evident. Accordingly, stray hints regarding the true author of the Shakespearean plays may be found in many 17th century volumes. On page 33, Bacon's cipher number of the 1609 edition of Robert Cowdrey's Treasury or Storehouse of Similes, appears the following significant allusion. Like as men would laugh at the poor man, if having precious garments lent him to act and play the part of some honorable personage upon a stage. When the play were at an end, he should keep them as his own, and brag up and down in them. Alright, so we have two illustrations here. This is a Baconian signature from Alexiate Emblematica. Okay. The curious volume from which this figure was taken was published in Paris in 1618. The attention of the Baconian student is immediately attracted to the form of the hog in the foreground. Bacon often used this animal as a play upon his own name, especially because the name Bacon was derived from the word beech, and the nut of this tree was used to fatten hogs. The two pillars in the background have considerable Masonic interest. The two A's nearly in the center of the picture, one light and one shaded, are alone almost conclusive proof of Baconian influence. The most convincing evidence, however, is the fact that 17 is the numerical equivalent of the letters of the Latin form of Bacon's name, F. Bacco, and there are 17 letters in the three words appearing in the illustration. And see, again, entirely possible, but you're trying too hard, right? Okay, hog. I see a wolf. Right? Is that supposed to be a hog? Because that is not what a hog looks like. The tail maybe, but these ears and that head shape is not a hog. I have seen many. The body shape, really? The posture of it? No. The way the legs bend, that is not a hog. That is a wolf. We have the two pillars. Okay, yes, you're correct. There's something wrote over the top of this. Two pillars are important in Rosicrucianism. It is important in Masonry. It is important in what I believe. These two pillars symbolize the light and the dark. We go through that all of the time. I don't see the two A's, right? One light and one dark. But, I mean, it's not as clear as it could be. Like, again, it just seems like you're trying too hard, right? Not bacon, but the Latin form of bacon, if you do it and then you take and add the numbers up, and then it makes 17, which is the numerical. Come on. Like, for real, it's just too much. And again, if you have to be that complicated, something's wrong. And this is another, we have unreadable for me, Philosopher's Princeps, something. Francis Bacon, Bacon Verulam, Viscount St. Albans, from Bacon's Advancement of Learning. Lord Bacon was born in 1561, and history records his death in 1626. There are records in existence, however, that would indicate the probability that his funeral was a mock funeral, and that leaving England, he lived for many years under another name in Germany. There, faithfully serving the secret society to the promulgation of whose doctrines he had consecrated his life, little doubt seems to exist in the minds of impartial investigators that Lord Bacon was the legitimate son of Queen Elizabeth and the Earl of Leicester. Really? There are records of that? There are records that the legitimate son of Queen Elizabeth? There's no doubt, right? There's little doubt seems to exist in the minds of impartial investigators that he was the legitimate. He might have been the illegitimate. Maybe that's a typo. Maybe he was a bastard, but he was not legitimate if he was not part of the marriage and there was no record of him being brought out of it. And I don't know the records, like I said, I ain't going through it, but this on the face, again, defies credulity. Elvis is still alive. He's out playing concerts in Hawaii. Didn't you know that? I mean, Tupac's alive. He's down in struggling roof around in Georgia. Like, are you kidding me? These things don't make sense. It is possible that he faked his death. Okay, whatever. But 1561 to 1626, that's what, 40, 60 years or so? That's a good life. That was about the life expectancy there. Like, it takes more belief and more faith to think that he did the thing and didn't leave a record of it and nobody actually knew, but everybody believes it. Right? We build up these things behind these people who do these things and make them seem more than they are sometimes. Paul. Repeated references to the word hog and the presence of cryptographic, did I read through? Yeah, I did. Okay. Through cryptographic statements on page 33 of various contemporary writings demonstrate that the keys to Bacon's ciphers were his own name, words playing upon it or its numerical equivalent. Notable examples of the famous statement of Mistress Quickly in The Merry Wives of Windsor. Hang hog is latin for bacon, I warrant you. So, a dead hog hanging is for bacon. The title pages of the Countess of Pembroke's Arcadia and Edmund Spencer's Faerie Queen, and the emblems appearing in the works of Alciatus and Wither. Furthermore, the word honorificabilitanidibus, honorific abilitanidibus, that is a big word, appearing in the fifth act of Love's Labor Lost, is a Rosicrucian signature as its numerical equivalent, 278, indicates. And then again, it's absolutely possible, but it is, like, I'm not a big one for secrecy. I'm really not. And if you were going to put the information out there, then fucking stand on it. Don't act like it's somebody else. Don't hide it in all this shit. But I'm doing something different over here. I am a different person than most people, and I fully understand that. I get why they needed the secrecy, I do. But if he was the one that wrote that book, then he's the reason that they needed the secrecy. Like, what? Again, on the title page of the first edition of Sir Francis Bacon's New Atlantis, Father Time is depicted bringing a female figure out of the darkness of a cave. Around the device is a Latin inscription. In time, the secret truth shall be revealed. The catchwords and printer's devices appearing in volumes published especially during the first half of the 17th century were designed, arranged, and in some cases mutilated according to a definite plan. It is evident, also, that the mispaginations in the Shakespearean folios and other volumes are keys to Baconian ciphers, for re-editions, often from new type and by different printers, contain the same mistakes. For example, the first and second folios of Shakespeare are printed from an entirely different type and by different printers, 9 years apart. But in both editions, page 153 of the comedies is numbered 151, and pages 249 and 250 are numbered 250 and 251, respectively. Also, in the 1640 edition of Bacon's The Advancement and Proficience of Learning, pages 353 and 354 are numbered 351 and 352, respectively. And in the 1641 edition of Dubartas Divine Weeks, pages 346 to 350, inclusively, are entirely missing. While page 450 is numbered 442, the frequency with which pages ending in numbers 50, 51, 52, 53, and 54 are involved will be noted. The requirements of Lord Verulam's literal cipher are fully met in scores of volumes printed between 1590 and 1650, and in some printed at other times. An examination of the verses by L. Digges, dedicated to the memory of the deceased author master William Shakespeare, revealed the use of 2 fonts of type for both capitals and small letters, the differences being most marked in the capital T's, N's, and A's. See the first folio. The cipher has been deleted from subsequent editions. The presence of hidden materials in the text is often indicated by needless involvement of words. On the 16th unnumbered page of the 1641 edition of Dubartas Divine Weeks is a boar surmounting a pyramidical text. The text is meaningless jargon, evidently inserted for a cryptographic reason and marked with Bacon's signature, the hog. The year following publication of the first folio of Shakespeare's plays in 1623, there was printed in Lüneburg a remarkable volume on cryptography, avowedly by Gustavus Salinus. It is considered extremely probable that this volume constitutes the cryptographic key to the great Shakespearean folio. Peculiar symbolical head and tail pieces also mark the presence of cryptograms. While such ornaments are found in many early printed books, certain emblems are peculiar to books containing Baconian Rosicrucian ciphers. The light and dark shaded A is an interesting example. Bearing in mind the frequent recurrence in Baconian symbolism of the light and dark shaded A and the hog, the following statement by Bacon in his interpretation of nature is highly significant. If the sow, with her snout, should happen to imprint the letter A upon the ground, wouldst thou therefore imagine that she could write out a whole tragedy as one letter? The Rosicrucians and other secret societies of the 17th century used watermarks as mediums for the conveyance of cryptographic references, and books presumably containing Baconian ciphers are usually printed upon paper bearing Rosicrucian or Masonic watermarks. Like, if they have the watermarks, then that makes sense, right? If you were hiding something and it is part of your secret society, makes sense that you would have keys, right? I like my keys. So you got the rose, or you have the square and the compass, the square and the compass, or whatever, the hog. Okay, whatever. But what's the message? Like, what's the message contained therein? It can't just be random, right? There has to be some greater hidden mystery within it. And why don't we have that? Maybe it's in the rest of this. Maybe there is an explanation for it. But as far as I know, there's no great hidden mystery in Hamlet. Right? It is just a story. It's a tragedy. It is whatever. But as far as I know, there's no great ascension in that. There's no walk me through how to distill the sulfur. Right? So I don't understand the need in some places. And maybe it's because I don't have the cipher and I don't have the key or whatever. But it is a little bit annoying when you are making these complicated things. Right? The more complicated, the less true. Almost certainly. All right. The Rosicrucians and other secret societies of 17th century used watermarks as mediums for the conveyance of cryptographic references, and books presumably containing Baconian ciphers are usually printed upon paper bearing Rosicrucian or Masonic watermarks. Often there are several symbols in one book, such as the rose cross, urns, bunches of grapes, and others. And see, all of that doesn't necessarily have to symbolize. It can, absolutely. You can use those symbols as part of your thing. But other people use the cross too. Other people use urns for damn sure. Bunches of grapes, absolutely, right? Some of them can be symbolic. Some of them may not be symbolic. It is something that you have to keep in mind if you do not know. At hand is a document which may prove a remarkable key to a cipher beginning in the tragedy of Cymbeline. So far as known, it has never been published and is applicable only to the 1623 folio of the Shakespearean plays. The cipher is a line and word count involving punctuation, especially the long and short exclamation points, and the straight and slanting interrogation points. This code was discovered by Henry William Bierce in 1900, and after it has been thoroughly checked, its exact nature will be made public. I'm going to go ahead and assume that it hasn't. Right, this was 1920s, right, when this was printed, was in the 1920s. It's just barely over the copyright mark where I can actually do this. And so I don't know. Do we have this? Y'all let me know down below if you know that we have this, because I will almost certainly forget to go and look it up. And it would be interesting, right? If it actually is a cipher and it actually has been proven to be true, it would be an interesting thing to know. I would like to know it. I love secret information. I will give it away. No reasonable doubt remains that the Masonic Order is the direct outgrowth of the secret society of the Middle Ages. Nor can it be denied that Freemasonry is permeated by the symbolism and mysticism of the ancient and medieval worlds. Sir Francis Bacon knew the true secret of Masonic origin, and there is reason to suspect that he concealed this knowledge in cipher and cryptogram. Bacon is not to be regarded solely as a man, but rather as the focal point between an invisible institution and a world which was never able to distinguish between the messenger and the message which he promulgated. This secret society, having rediscovered the lost wisdom of the ages and fearing that the knowledge might be lost again, perpetuated it in two ways: by an organization, Freemasonry, to the initiates of which it revealed its wisdom in the form of symbols, and two, by embodying its arcana in the literature of the day by means of cunningly contrived ciphers and enigmas. All right, we have a cryptic headpiece from Rayleigh's History of the World. We have a cherubim shooting an angel on both sides. There is a bull dog. It ain't a bulldog, but it's a bulldog. And there's something sitting on the throne here in the middle, surrounded by a phoenix on one side, and I don't know what that is on the other side. It kind of looks like it might be a phoenix, but it kind of doesn't. Like, this looks like a phoenix with something in his mouth, and this almost looks like the mirror, but not quite the mirror. So, I don't know. Y'all get back and let me know what you think down below. Many documents influenced by Baconian philosophy or intended to conceal Baconian or Rosicrucian cryptograms use certain conventional designs at the beginning and end of chapters, which reveal to the initiated the presence of concealed information. The above ornamental has long been accepted as of the presence of Baconian influence, and is to be found only in certain number of rare volumes, all of which contain Baconian cryptograms. These cipher messages were placed in the books either by Bacon himself or by a contemporaneous and subsequent authors belonging to the same secret society which Bacon served with his remarkable knowledge of ciphers and enigmas. Variants of this headpiece adorn the great Shakespearean folio, 1623, Bacon's Novum Organum, 1620, the St. James Bible, 1611, Spencer's Fairy Queen, 1611, and Sir Walter Raleigh's History of the World, 1614. See American Baconiana. The Droeshout Portrait of Shakespeare, from Shakespeare's Great Folio of 1623. William Shakespeare, Comedy, Histories, and Tragedies, published according to the true original copies, London, 1623. There are no authentic portraits of Shakespeare in existence. The dissimilarities in Droeshout, Chandros, Jansen, Hunt, Ashbourne, Soest, and Dunford portraits prove conclusively that the artists were unaware of Shakespeare's actual features. An examination of the Droeshout portrait discloses several peculiarities. Baconian enthusiasts are convinced that the face is only a caricature, possibly the death mask of Francis Bacon. A comparison of the Droeshout Shakespeare with portraits and engravings of Francis Bacon demonstrates the identity of the structure of the two faces, the difference in expression being caused by lines of shading. Note also the peculiar line running from the ear down to the chin. Does this line subtly signify that the face itself is a mask, ending at the ear? Notice also that the head is not connected with the body, but is resting on the collar. Most strange of all is the coat. One half is on backwards. In drawing the jacket, the artist has made the left arm correctly, but the right arm has the back of the shoulder to the front. Frank Woodward has noted that there are 157 letters on the title page. This is a Rosicrucian signature of first importance. The date, 1623, plus the two letters ON from the word, London, give the cryptic signature of Francis Bacon. Are you kidding me? Which ON? The first one or the second one? Is it the first one or the second one? I mean, come on. By a simple numerical cipher, by merely exchanging the 26 letters of the alphabet for numbers, 1 becomes A, 6 becomes F, 2 becomes B, 3 becomes C, giving A, F, B, C. To this is added the ON from London, resulting in AFB Con, which, rearranged, forms F Bacon. Too many steps. I'm a big one on that. If there's that many steps, then you're probably reading something that's not there. It could be. I hold the possibility. I don't like stepping on those particular things, but it is well worth noting that if it is that overly complicated, it is almost certainly incorrect. Evidence points to the existence of a group of wise and illustrious fratres who assume the responsibility of publishing and preserving for future generations the choicest of the secret books of the ancients, together with certain other documents which they themselves had prepared. That future members of their fraternity might not only identify these volumes, but also immediately note the significant passages, words, chapters, or sections therein, they created a symbolic alphabet of hieroglyphic design. By means of a certain key and order, the discerning few were thus enabled to find that wisdom by which a man is raised to an illuminate life. The tremendous import of the Baconian mystery is daily becoming more apparent. Sir Francis Bacon was a link in that great chain of minds which has perpetuated the secret doctrine of antiquity from its beginning. This secret doctrine is concealed in his cryptic writings. The search for this divine wisdom is the only legitimate motive for the effort to decode his cryptograms. Masonic research might discover much of value if it would turn its attention to certain volumes published during the 16th and 17th centuries, which bear the stamp and signet of that secret society whose members first established modern Freemasonry, but themselves remained as an intangible group, controlling and directing the activities of the outer body. The unknown history and lost rituals of Freemasonry may be rediscovered in the symbolism and cryptograms of the Middle Ages. Freemasonry is the bright and glorious son of a mysterious and hidden father. It cannot trace its parentage because that origin is obscured by the veil of the superphysical and the mystical. The great folio of 1623 is a veritable treasure house of Masonic lore and symbolism, and the time is at hand when that great work should be accorded the consideration which it is due. I may have to do the great folio. Though Christianity shattered the material organization of the pagan mysteries, it could not destroy the knowledge of supernatural power which the pagans possessed. Therefore, it is known that the mysteries of Greece and Egypt were secretly perpetuated through the early centuries of the Church, and later, by being clothed in the symbolism of Christianity, were accepted as elements of that faith. Sir Francis Bacon was one of those who had been entrusted with the perpetuation and dissemination of the arcana of superphysical originally in the possession of the pagan hierophants, and to attain that end either formulated the fraternity of R.C. or was admitted into an organization already existing under that name and became one of its principal representatives. For some reason, not apparent to the uninitiated, there has been a continued and consistent effort to prevent the unraveling of the Baconian skein. Whatever the power may be which continually blocks the effort of investigators, it is as unremitting now as it was immediately following Bacon's death, and those attempting to solve the enigma still feel the weight of its resentment. A misunderstanding world has ever persecuted those who understood the secret workings of nature, seeking in every conceivable manner to exterminate the custodians of this divine wisdom. Sir Francis Bacon's political prestige was finally undermined, and Sir Walter Raleigh met a shameful fate because of their transcendental knowledge was considered dangerous. The forging of Shakespeare's handwriting, the foisting of fraudulent portraits and death masks upon the gullible public, the fabrication of spurious biographies, the mutilation of books and documents, the destruction or rendering illegible of tablets and inscriptions containing cryptographic messages, have all compounded the difficulties attendant upon the solution of the Bacon-Shakespeare Rosicrucian riddle. The Ireland forgeries deceived experts for years. According to material available, the Supreme Council of the Fraternity of R.C. was composed of a certain number of individuals who had died what is known as the philosophic death. When the time came for an initiate to enter upon his labors for the order, he conveniently died under somewhat mysterious circumstances. In reality, he changed his name in place of residence, and a box of rocks or a body secured for the purpose was buried in his stead. It is believed that this happened in the case of Sir Francis Bacon, who, like all servants of the mysteries, renounced all personal credit and permitted others to be considered as the authors of the documents which he wrote or inspired. The cryptic writings of Francis Bacon constitute one of the most powerful, tangible elements in the mysteries of transcendentalism and symbolic philosophy. Apparently, many years must yet pass before an uncomprehending world will appreciate the transcending genius of that mysterious man who wrote the Novum Organum, who sailed his little ship far out into the unexplored sea of learning through the Pillars of Hercules, and whose ideals for a new civilization are magnificently expressed in the utopian dream of the New Atlantis. Was Sir Francis Bacon a second Prometheus? Did his great love of the people of the world and his pity for their ignorance cause him to bring the divine fire from heaven concealed within the contents of a printed page? If so, it would be plain. If you are standing for knowledge and for God, then you are going to stand for knowledge and for God. You're not going to do the things that are attributed here, right? The second Prometheus. Are you kidding me? Well, by hiding things? In all probability, the keys to the Baconian riddle, will be found in classical mythology. He who understands the secret of the seven-rayed God will comprehend the method employed by Bacon to accomplish his monumental labor. Aliases were assumed by him in accordance with the attributes and order of the members of the planetary system. One of the least known, but most important keys to the Baconian enigma is the third, or 1637 edition, published in Paris, of Les Images au tableau de la plate peinture des douze philosophes sophistes grecs et les statues de Callistrate, by Blaise de Vigenère. The title page of this volume, which, as the name of the author, when properly deciphered, indicates, was written by or under the direction of Bacon or his secret society. In what is one mass of important Masonic or Rosicrucian symbols. On page 486 appears a plate entitled Hercules Furieux, showing a gigantic figure shaking a spear, the ground before him strewn with curious emblems. In his curious work, Das Bild des Speerschütters die Lösung von Shakespeare Rätsels, Alfred Freund attempts to explain the Baconian symbolism in the Philostrates. Bacon he reveals as the philosophical Hercules, whom time will establish as the true spear shaker, Shakespeare. And we're going to be read out by this. So the title page of the famous first edition of Sir Walter Raleigh's History of the World. Click to enlarge. We have the world upon the shoulders of a female, surrounded by a crone and a maiden. And we have two angels blowing trumpets to the eye, one light, one dark. And we have a fairly decent representation of the planet, which is interesting. This was 1614. This was not all that long. I'm trying to remember, 1492. So about 200 years, roughly. Not even 200 years, 100, 150. Okay. What was the mysterious knowledge which Sir Walter Raleigh possessed and which was declared to be detrimental to the British government? Why was he executed when the charges against him could not be proved? Was he a member of those feared and hated societies which nearly overthrew political and religious Europe during the 16th and 17th centuries? Was Sir Walter Raleigh an important factor in the Bacon, Shakespeare, Rosicrucian, Masonic enigma? By those seeking the keys of this great controversy, he seems to have been almost entirely overlooked. His contemporaries are unanimous in their praise of his remarkable intellect, and he has long been considered one of Britain's most brilliant sons. Sir Walter Raleigh, soldier, courtier, statesman, writer, poet, philosopher, and explorer, was a scintillating figure in the court of Queen Elizabeth. Upon this same man, King James, after the death of Elizabeth, heaped every indignity within his power. The cowardly James, who shuddered at the mention of weapons and cried like a child when he was crossed, was insanely jealous of the brilliant courtier. Raleigh's enemies, playing upon the king's weaknesses, did not cease their relentless persecution until Raleigh had been hanged, and his decapitated, quartered, and disemboweled body lay at their feet. The title page above was used in Raleigh's political foes as a powerful weapon against him. They convinced James I that the face of the central figure upholding the globe was a caricature of his own, and the enraged king ordered every copy of the engraving destroyed. But a few copies escaped the royal wrath. Consequently, the plate is extremely rare. The engraving is a mass Rosicrucian and Masonic symbols, and the figures on the columns, in all probability, conceal a cryptogram. More significant still is the fact that the page facing this plate is a headpiece identical with that used in the 1623 folio of Shakespeare, and also in Bacon's Novum Organum. I am probably going to try to find the copy of the History of the World, if I can remember. Y'all remind me. Where's the headpiece? I don't see the headpiece in here. Like, I see symbolism, absolutely. There's a pillar here that looks to be holding knowledge, and then there's a pillar here. Like, there are 4 pillars. I'm going to assume that these are the 4 elements somehow, right? But we have what is definitely book, right? That is definitely book. This looks to be hieroglyphs. I don't know what this is. That looks like just falling water or rain, maybe. Like, it's hard not having a clear copy to see exactly what's contained in here. But there is definitely symbolism, right? I don't deny symbolism. I don't deny secrets and cryptographs or even the need for them. I personally find them offensive, right? I understand that it was a necessary thing to hide knowledge. For several hundred years, you would be drawn and quartered and your guts cut out. That was real. That happened all the damn time. People were tied to stakes and burnt alive. People were tied to chairs and thrown in rivers. So there were various things that were done to people. So I understand that. But if you're going to take the time to record it, then fucking die. But stand on it. Like, fully stand on it. Get it out as many places as you can so they can't hide it. And then, yeah, I did that. But that's me. I'm perfectly fine with other people not doing the things that I would do. I do find extreme exception with the overly hidden things, right? Simple clues and simple keys to open up simple doors is acceptable, right? There can be 1 through 8 hidden, right? It starts off with a 1 and a 3 and an 8. That lets you know that there's going to be manifestation instructions in here. Read it like an allegory. But I am not going to be one of those people who will ever be okay with, well, you have to take the 1st, the 3rd, and the 8th letter and add them together, and then you can get the number that you need. No. To me, that is always going to be too many steps. It's always going to be that way. Unless it is proven. Like, here we are 100 years after this. And as far as I know, we don't have the proof yet. Here in the age of information, where you can pick up a computer, type in whatever you want, and get the sum of all human knowledge at your fingertips that quick. We still do not have it. As far as I know, if I am wrong, let me know down below, because I would definitely check it out. That is the type of thing that I am interested in throwing light on. I am probably going to wind up doing the History of the World. I will probably wind up doing several of these books as soon as I can remember to get to them. I'm trying to do this differently than I have been for the past few weeks. I'm trying to do this and get done with this particular book and then do another book and get done with that book, instead of trying to do 2 or 3 books at a time, so that it's a little bit harder for the algorithm to decide where to put me. I'm trying to get this information out there as good as I can, as well as I can, as clear as possible. And part of that effort is going to be throwing clarification where there has been obscurity. I just have to know where to look, right? I don't know everything. I don't have the keys to everything. I do have a few keys, however, and some of those keys, I am still getting. I just got the key to visualization that just happened in the last week. There are still keys being revealed to me, and I hold that fully in my mind as I am looking at this and talking shit about it. Don't think that I am fully dismissing this altogether, right? I am expressing my distaste in the methods. I am definitely not fully convinced, but I am willing to be convinced. If you have more evidence that points to this being true, give it to me and I will investigate it. We will go through it step by step, talk about it and discuss it. We will do what we need to do to prove it true or false either way. I just need to know. I have to know what to do. So it is what it is. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a series of somewhat difficult topics. I didn't have a whole lot to add to this other than disbelief, and I know sometimes that is all I can add. That's okay. I am fine with it. I am fine with being corrected. If you don't agree with me, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment. And if you agree or disagree, if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you really like what I'm doing, hit me with that super thanks, because I am not a communist. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt's Take. Peace.